Welcome to Auto News Talk. The global auto industry is bleeding absolutely billions of dollars trying to build rolling computers while seemingly forgetting how to master the basic physics of heavy machinery.
Right.
We are watching this massive high-stakes collision of two completely different worlds. On one side, you have executives frantically rushing toward a, software-dominated, electrified future. And on the other side, they are slamming face first into the incredibly harsh, unyielding mechanical realities of building safe physical vehicles.
Yeah, and here is the terrain we are walking through with you to understand this collision.
Yeah.
We are looking at sweeping global trade battles where survival is quite literally on the line.
Yeah.
We are unpacking multi-billion-dollar corporate pivots from legacy automakers who are watching their margins just completely evaporate. And we are going to trace those massive shifts right down to the local dealership showroom floor and literally into the physical seats inside your family SUV.
It all comes down to the same old scale problem, right? But the math has gotten violently unforgiving. I mean, if an automaker doesn't hit volume on a dedicated electric vehicle platform, the per unit cost isn't just bad, it's fatal.
Exactly.
And we have an industry report making the rounds detailing an incredible strategic retreat by Honda that perfectly illustrates this bloodbath.
Yeah, the scale of this retreat is staggering. So, according to this industry report, Honda is taking a 2.5 trillion yen charge.
Wait, trillion?
Yes, trillion yen. When you convert that, we're talking about a $15.7 billion hit.
Oh my gosh, $15 billion.
Right. They are drastically pulling back from their EV plans and pivoting hard back to hybrids. Because of the sheer weight of this restructuring, the report notes they are expecting to post their first annual loss in nearly 7 decades as a publicly listed company.
Wait, let me wrap my head around that. A nearly 70-year streak of profitability just snapped.
Snapped. Completely broken.
Wow. And they are canceling 3 major EVs that were explicitly planned for U.S. production, right? The saloon sedan, the Honda SUV, and the Acura RSX.
That's right.
How does a company with Honda's legendary engineering pedigree hit a wall that hard and that fast?
Well, to understand that, you have to look at the underlying mechanics of their business model versus their competitors. The report points directly to fierce competition from faster-moving, software-centric Chinese rivals.
Okay, so the speed of development is the issue.
Exactly. The fundamental issue is that legacy automakers like Honda, they operate on a traditional, multi-year waterfall hardware development cycle.
Right, the waterfall method. So you lock in a design and it takes years to reach the showroom.
Exactly. You don't change the blueprint halfway through. But these newer local Chinese EV makers, they treat cars like smartphones. They use agile software development cycles.
So they iterate in months, not years.
Yes, and they deliver vastly superior software, advanced driver assistance systems that update over the air, and just a much sharper value for money proposition.
And the margin for error just doesn't exist when your volume is that low to begin with. Like, the same report highlights that battery electric vehicles made up only 2.5% of Honda's global sales in a prior cycle.
Right, which is roughly 84,000 cars globally.
Which is nothing.
It's a rounding error for an automaker of that size. And this brings us to the most painful part of the report, which is the cash outflow. Honda is anticipating up to 1.7 trillion yen in cash outflows, primarily to compensate their suppliers.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand this. They are bleeding billions to pay suppliers for cars that will literally never be built.
Yes.
How are they locked into contracts that toxic?
Well, it exposes the brutal reality of the physical supply chain. When an automaker halts a massive project just before it reaches mass production, they can't just walk away.
Because the suppliers have already done the work.
Exactly. The suppliers have already spent fortunes building the massive tooling required for, say, battery casings. They have sourced the raw materials, they've signed facility leases, they've hired the labor.
Oh, right. All that physical infrastructure.
Yeah. And the contracts lock in those obligations to protect the supplier. So Honda is hemorrhaging cash just to pay off vendors for physical parts that we'll never see an assembly line. And it's all because U.S. consumer demand reversed and completely undermined the financial viability of launching those new vehicles.
There is a really vivid detail in this source that perfectly captures this technology and cost gap. Despite launching multiple models, the report notes Honda sold a mere 17,000 EVs in China in a prior cycle.
17,000 vehicles in the largest auto market in the world.
That's incredible.
It is a stunning visual of how far behind legacy automakers can fall when a market shifts from hardware first to software first. Now, what this report explicitly doesn't answer is what Honda's revised U.S. timeline actually looks like now.
Right, or what happens to their high-profile Sony mobility venture, Afila.
Exactly. That direction remains entirely up in the air as they desperately try to retool their approach to software.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's like Honda is trying to rebuild an airplane mid-flight because they're losing dogfights to faster jets.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the rest of the U.S. industry is just begging air traffic control to ban those faster jets from our airspace entirely.
That is the exact dynamic playing out on the geopolitical stage right now. While Honda looks inward to restructure, the American domestic auto industry is looking outward and trying to build a fortress.
Right.
A separate policy document just crossed our desks, taking the form of an urgent, united letter from 5 major U.S. auto industry groups.
And the signatories on this are massive powerhouses. We're talking about the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, the National Automobile Dealers Association, Autos Drive America, and the Vehicle Suppliers Association. They are not mincing words. According to this letter, they are urging the administration to completely block Chinese automakers from the American market.
Complete ban. Their primary demand is that the administration preserve a specific Commerce Department cybersecurity regulation that effectively blocks Chinese-built vehicles from entering the U.S.
Because modern vehicles are essentially rolling computers.
Exactly. The argument hinges on national security and data privacy, but they want to go much further than just blocking direct imports.
Right. The letter details how they are demanding the rejection of any workarounds. They specifically do not want Chinese companies building manufacturing plants on U.S. soil to bypass the restrictions.
Right.
They are demanding equal treatment, meaning equal bans for imported vehicles and locally assembled vehicles from Chinese firms.
Which presents an incredible philosophical clash, This stance actively contrasts with prior political remarks that had actually welcomed Chinese automakers to build plants in the United States.
Because the previous logic was simple. If they build the plants here, they create American manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, exactly. But this united front from the auto groups is a defining test of how you balance domestic job creation against protecting your own technological competitiveness.
And it shows how fragile the North American borders really are. I mean, this policy letter severely criticizes Canada for allowing some Chinese vehicles into their market.
Yeah, that was a huge point of contention.
They are warning that because the North American auto supply chain is so deeply integrated, parts and vehicles cross the U.S.-Canada border constantly. An opening in Canada could ripple right through the borders and completely undermine U.S. protections.
The margin for error in global trade is vanishing. Now, looking at the other side of this geopolitical standoff, the source provides a direct quote from China's embassy in Washington.
What did they say?
They pushed back aggressively against these demands. They stated that Chinese automakers compete on technological innovation and quality, not unfair practices. They also emphasized that their own domestic market remains open to foreign brands.
It is a massive standoff, and one major limitation of the source is that it leaves us with a glaring open question. The administration has not publicly responded to this pressure ahead of an upcoming planned summit.
Right.
So we are left waiting to see if they will close those localization loopholes or maintain the status quo.
It's fascinating. You have executives fighting these multi-billion-dollar macro battles over trade borders and technology platforms. But if you zoom in, the local dealerships still have to figure out how to sell whatever actually arrives on their lots in this chaotic market.
Yeah, they're the ones in the trenches.
Exactly. And the way they find buyers is undergoing a radical adaptation.
Imagine you own a dealership right now. The old playbook of waiting for someone to walk onto the lot or fill out a web form is completely broken.
Completely.
We have an industry discussion featuring insights from Mo Zahabi of Cox Automotive, and the central thesis is blunt dealerships must stop chasing cold leads.
Yeah, relying on outdated outreach and disconnected tools is just burning budget. The report details how dealers need to use first-party data and artificial intelligence to spot buying intent weeks before a traditional lead form is ever filled out.
So a traditional lead where a customer actually types in their name, email, and phone number and hits submit, that's practically useless now.
Well, by the time they hit submit, they have already been shopping for weeks across multiple sites. Zahabi argues that you need a smart customer relationship management system, or CRM, that guides the daily actions of the sales team using historical contexts.
Think about the mechanics of how this works in practice. The report outlines how a smart CRM should look at behavioral signals already inside the dealership systems. For instance, closing the service-to-sales loop.
This is a great example.
Imagine you bring your 3-year-old car into the service bay just for new brakes. You don't know it, but a connected system has just flagged you as being in market because your warranty is expiring soon.
Right.
It immediately signals the sales team that your specific vehicle is highly desirable for their used inventory, allowing them to approach you with a targeted upgrade offer while you are literally sitting in the waiting room.
It's brilliant. And there is a highly specific, vivid detail in this Cox Automotive recap about what they call digital body language.
Digital body language. I love that term.
So accurate. Zahabi points out that repeated online changes to a down payment or a term length on a dealer's website reveal a shopper's acceptable price range.
Wait, how does that work?
Well, think about the last time you adjusted an online slider for a down payment. If a shopper keeps toggling the slider between a $3,000 and $4,000 down payment, the system instantly logs their exact pain threshold.
Oh, wow. Which gives the salesperson a massive advantage.
A huge advantage.
It enables them to have incredibly confident negotiations without all the agonizing back and forth delays because they already know exactly what math makes the deal work for that specific buyer.
Because timing and context are the new currency. The report argues that intent detection is the only way to prevent a customer from drifting to a competitor mid-deal. If you keep them engaged with the exact right offer in real time, you win.
Here's where it gets really interesting, but also a bit tricky. It sounds brilliant to say, just let AI find the buyer and read their digital body language. But aren't most sales teams still drowning in multiple logins and messy systems? Is AI actually an accelerant here? Or is it just strapping a jet engine to a horse-drawn carriage?
That is exactly the vulnerability this source highlights. If you strap a jet engine to a carriage with broken wheels, which in this case is a messy, duplicated CRM system, it doesn't go faster.
It just tears itself apart.
Exactly. The report warns that duplicate tools, low adoption rates, and fragmented tech stacks are causing massive blind spots. Imagine salesperson A using one software login for internet leads, service tech B using another for maintenance, and the finance manager using a third.
So the data is everywhere.
Right. The AI cannot see the whole customer if the data is siloed. The report explicitly frames AI as an accelerant, not a silver bullet. It absolutely requires clean, connected data to function.
And that brings us to the gap in this report. It explicitly doesn't answer how these deeply fragmented dealerships are actually supposed to ensure their data is fully clean and connected across all these different vendors before they apply this AI.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
It's easy for an analyst to say, consolidate your tools, but executing that on a busy showroom floor is a whole different beast.
It's ironic, isn't it? Dealers are absolutely desperate to use software to perfectly predict a human's behavior on the sales floor. But once that human actually buys the car and sits in the driver's seat, the software in the vehicle can't even predict if a person is in the way of a folding chair.
This is where the engineering reality hits the road, and the consequences turn deadly serious. We have an urgent safety bulletin from Hyundai regarding a stop sale and recall for select recent model Palisade SUVs, specifically the limited and calligraphy trims.
This bulletin is chilling. It affects roughly 68,500 vehicles across the U.S. and Canada. The core issue is a safety failure in the power seats.
The second and third row power seats?
Right. They're failing to properly detect contact with occupants or objects when they are moving.
And to be clear on the stakes here, the bulletin notes this action was triggered by an incident involving a fatality that currently remains under investigation.
That's tragic.
Dealers have been ordered to halt all new sales of these trims immediately. Current owners are being explicitly told to use extreme caution and to physically, visually confirm that no person or child is in the folding path before they operate those seats.
This raises a fascinating point about how we fix modern heavy machinery. Because this failure is tied to the sensors and the code interpreting those sensors, Hyundai is targeting an over-the-air, or OTA, software update as an interim fix.
Wait, really?
Yeah. They're going to beam a patch through the cloud to improve the contact detection sensitivity and add operating safeguards.
They are fixing a physical crushing hazard with a wireless download, while a permanent remedy is still in development.
Exactly. This represents a profound psychological and engineering shift. Software now fundamentally governs physical cabin safety. It allows automakers to deploy remote, interim fixes almost instantly to millions of vehicles, while the slower physical remedies are developed and tested in a laboratory.
Though we should note the bulletin is incomplete on a few fronts, Hyundai hasn't detailed the exact specific failure conditions that trigger this sensor blind spot.
Yeah.
Whether it requires a specific angle or weight, or whether Palisade vehicles sold outside the US and Canada are affected?
Now, to truly understand the chaotic split personality of modern auto safety, we have to contrast that Hyundai software issue with a separate recall notice from Toyota.
According to this Toyota source, they are recalling over 550,000 Highlander and Highlander hybrid SUVs. And this is for a deeply physical, old-school defect in the second-row seatbacks.
Over 500,000 vehicles, and the cause detailed in the report is fascinating from a mechanical supply chain perspective.
What exactly went wrong?
A supplier made a minor design change to the second-row recliner assembly. Think of a ratchet like a geared tooth. You have two physical pieces of metal, a locking spring and a return spring.
Okay, I'm picturing that.
The return spring's job is to yank that tooth into the lock position.
But the report details how that supplier design change caused an imbalance between those two springs. So the locking spring is now overpowering the return spring.
Exactly. Because of that imbalance, the ratchet teeth fail to fully engage. They just hover above the gear instead of biting into it. The seatback might look and feel like it is locked into place to the passenger, but it actually isn't.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Right. In the event of a crash, it could easily spring forward and fail to properly restrain an occupant.
The source notes there have been 10 field reports and 18 warranty claims, but thankfully, 0 injuries reported so far.
That's the good news.
Dealerships will provide a free parts and labor replacement of that return spring. But what we absolutely need to highlight here, and what is explicitly attributed to the recall notice, is that this safety risk is purely mechanical hardware. It is explicitly not software.
Yep.
It absolutely cannot be fixed via an over-the-air update.
You cannot download a new spring from the cloud. It proves the enduring, inescapable vulnerability of physical supply chains. One tiny supplier changed to the tension of a single spring design results in 500,000 massive vehicles needing to be physically driven to a dealership for a manual wrench and parts replacement.
And there is an ongoing bureaucratic hurdle noted in the report. Federal regulators still have to officially review Toyota's defect report and their proposed remedy plan before this is completely resolved.
Right.
So what does this all mean? We have 2 massive SUVs with seating recalls. One is a ghost in the machine sensors and code that can be beamed to fix through the air. The other is literally just a piece of bent metal, a spring that requires a mechanic. Doesn't this perfectly capture the split personality of modern cars?
It captures it perfectly, and it is the exact right lens to synthesize everything we've covered. If we pull all these threads together, strictly looking at the sources we've discussed, 3 major themes emerge.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, there's a brutal financial cost falling behind in the technology race. We see that clearly supported by Honda, taking a $15.7 billion hit to pivot their strategy, and the U.S. Auto Associations literally begging the government for protectionist cybersecurity tariffs to survive against faster rivals.
The cost of being slow isn't just a loss of market share anymore. It is structurally fatal to the business model.
Exactly. Second, we see that software is simultaneously the ultimate solution and a dangerous liability.
Like a double-edged sword.
Right. On the sales side, the Cox Automotive data shows how smart CRM software and AI can brilliantly predict a buyer's digital body language and save a dealership's margins. But on the engineering side, the Hyundai recall shows how a software blind spot in a power seat can lead to a start sale and a tragic incident, even if it has the benefit of being quickly patched over the air.
Which leads right into the third theme.
The inescapable vulnerability of the physical supply chain. No matter how much brilliant code you write, cars are heavy machinery. This is supported by Honda having to hemorrhage up to 1.7 trillion yen just to compensate suppliers for canceled physical parts, and Toyota having to recall 500,000 SUVs because a supplier changed the tension of a single mechanical spring.
And running right through those themes are 2 massive, undeniable tensions.
Yes. The first tension is open global markets versus protectionist walls. You have the Chinese embassy fiercely defending their technological innovation on one side, clashing directly with the U.S. auto groups demanding strict regulations and localization bans to protect domestic production.
And the second tension is digital fixes versus physical realities. Hyundai beaming a cloud update to fix a crushing hazard versus Toyota requiring physical manual labor to replace a bent piece of metal.
Exactly, which leaves us with one incredibly stark practical takeaway. The margin for error has completely vanished across this entire industry. Whether you are an executive in Tokyo pivoting a $15 billion corporate strategy, a local dealer utilizing AI to track a customer's online down payment slider, or a lower-tier supplier designing a simple seat spring. Execution must be absolutely flawless.
Because if it isn't, the costs are measured in billions of dollars, or worse, in human safety.
And that leads to a final thought I want to leave you with, looking at the road ahead. As these vehicles increasingly become rolling smartphones, entirely governed by complex code and massive touchscreens, how long until we, as consumers, actually value the software update and the processing power more than the physical crash structure of the vehicle itself?
That is a fascinating question to ponder the next time you get behind the wheel. Thank you so much for joining us for this segment of Auto News Talk. Keep an eye on how these global trade demands, these massive corporate pivots, and these silent software updates fundamentally reshape the cars you see on your local lots. We'll be keeping a close watch right here.